Welcome to a very special episode of the Cowl Cast. I'm Mike, and alongside me we have...
Simone.
And Mikey.
And from the saga, the Clone Saga, we have Vincent Faust.
Hey, guys.
So, Vince, you're the guest picker this week. You want to tell us what you chose?
I wanted to talk about the 1990 Prestige miniseries World's Finest.
By Dave Gibbons and Steve Rude.
Yeah, and so Dave Gibbons, many mostly know for his artistic collaborations. He did Watchmen with Alan Moore, and he did Martha Washington with Frank Miller. But he's also written and drawn a tons of stuff to the side. He's done a shitload of Green Lantern work. He did Rand Thanagar War. And then over on art, we have Steve Rude, who's primarily known for his indie series Nexus with Mike Barron, which, just to keep my brand consistent, I have to say, Nexus had a crossover with Valiant's Magnus Robot Fighter.
Did it now?
Valiant is becoming like the Dukes of Hazzard for you in references, in the sense of the Dukes of Hazzard can tie into everything, and now Valiant Comics ties into everything.
And Carl Kessel is also involved. In the credits, they're both listed as illustrators, so I'm honestly not certain the way the workload was split, but I'm assuming Carl Kessel is inking, since that is what he's known for.
Yeah.
He also, like Gibbons, he's a writer and an artist. He's written or inked stuff like Adventures of Superman, Superboy, Hawk and Dove, Daredevil, and the only Harley Quinn series, which is actually on model with the BTAS classic version of the character. So we've got a great creative team on this book.
Yep, and like you said, it's a very, very pretty art. And then Steve Rude just did a cover for Action 1000, and he did a few pages in Bendis' Man of Steel.
Yep.
Cool.
I think Rude, for me, is one of the best Superman artists.
After reading this book, he had my second favorite cover for Action 1000, the 1930s variant.
Yeah.
Nothing could beat out the all red 60s for me, but if I probably saw that cover at Swap, I probably would have bought it, which would then have made me buy 3 copies of that stupid book, but I love that cover a lot.
Yeah, the only unfortunate thing is that Rude, he really didn't draw Superman that much, or even just kind of Big Two comics in general, though in addition to this series, he also did the Superman Hulk crossover one-shot from 1999. And he did a Jimmy Olsen starring story in Legends of the DC Universe with a bunch of tributes to the Jack Kirby kind of fourth world Jimmy Olsen kind of mythology.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned tributes, because particularly for the art in this book, it is a throwback tribute to the first appearance looks of the characters that Steve Rude wanted to draw. So Superman very much has that Schuster look, but he also wanted to do Fleischer style, and then Batman has the Bill Finger like kind of higher ears.
Yeah, and a lot of the scenes too, when he draws Batman's cape, it has that more like classic style from Bob Kane and the 40s and 50s artists.
Yep.
And as far as the Joe Shuster influence on Superman, he has those like very squinted eyes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which I was talking to you about this last night. If you read who here has a physical copy, in the back of the book, Steve Rude was talking about how he had to fight DC editorial to draw Superman like that. And it wasn't until like the early fan response of them liking it that he actually got the clearance to draw Superman in that Golden Age style.
Yeah.
He talked about it. He wanted to draw Batman like full on, like first appearance, purple gloves, no yellow oval, but DC vetoed that, so they came to a compromise. So he has the old look, but he still has the blue cape and the yellow oval.
I still would have preferred the purple gloves and stuff, honestly. That would look a lot cooler.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that. I'm talking because like it's meant to be like this throwback Golden Age story, but it's kind of set in DC continuity in 1990 because there's things like Barbara Gordon being in a wheelchair.
Right.
But like there's also things like it feels like its own thing because like Gordon and Perry White are like buds.
Yeah.
And like Alfred also knows them.
It's really not clear at all because it is explicitly set when it was released in 1990 because we see that on gravestones at some point. but also Citizen Kane is in theaters at some point.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, you can bring a movie as a throwback into a theater whenever you want. But that movie came out in 1941, so I wasn't sure, like, is this supposed to be Golden Age? What? I'm confused.
Well, it has a very Golden Age feel to it through the art, but like the way the story's structured, it's very much like a classic superhero team up as well.
That's why this book was so interesting to look at, because it just has like that old school like Golden Age vibe, and you can see like Rude was taking inspiration off of like Schuster and Bill Finger. So
I mean, I love it. The book, it's a beautiful, beautiful book.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's gorgeous.
And like Vince was talking last night when we were discussing it a little bit, that there's just panels, like pure moment panels that could be like just posters or like pictures you'd want to hang up on a wall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Like I know Vince, you really liked the maintenance room sequence.
Yeah, Superman gets into his costume. He sneaks into the Daily Planet room.
Yeah,
it's one of those things where it's one panel and they don't even do the splits, but it shows him doing several actions, and it's just
indicates like movement and stuff.
Yeah, it just flows so perfectly, and then he flies out the window.
Mm-hmm.
And as we've talked about the art a lot, I mean, we're probably going to talk about it more. We should probably dive into the meat of this book. Vince, you want to take up issue 1?
Yeah. So we open with parallel scenes of Batman and Superman, and speaking of like desktop background poster style moments, in the first issue, in short succession, we get these beautiful cityscapes of Gotham and Metropolis. And with Gotham, you have this kind of darker tint, and Metropolis, you have this really sunny, warm vibe. And it really shows the differences between the cities without even going into much detail. It's just the skyscrapers and the skies. Batman stops a guy. It's a bag snatcher. Superman breaks up some traffic fight. And then we get into the actual plot where there's this society party in honor of an orphanage. And the orphanage and or the area that it's in, it's referred to as Midway. Mm-hmm. And it's implied that it's midway between Gotham and Metropolis. And I totally misinterpreted it off the bat, and this caused a little bit of a discussion where I swore I read the word city at some point. So I thought it was Midway City, which is in Michigan, where Hawkman and the Doom Patrol live. So I almost had a continuity nerd freak out because that geography wouldn't have worked.
Well, yeah, I was like, oh, I thought it was Midway City as well, and then you had to remind me that Metropolis isn't like Delaware, so like, yeah, that doesn't work at all.
Yeah, but I feel like it's not entirely clear because the DC Wiki also makes that same mistake, so I might go fix that later. But then at this party, since it's midway between these two cities, we have these major figures from both cities invited, and Clark and Bruce are paralleled, and then we have a conversation between Lois and Alfred, and then Perry White and Jim, and then our final part, which I think this is one of the coolest like little subplots / characters in this book, are we get these two orphans, each from either city, and they're arguing Batman versus Superman, and they've both been saved by the heroes.
Yeah.
I thought that was cute, and there's like a scene way later on where it's like their Christmas cards or something, and they drew the characters and described them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that subplot because it was, like you said, it is very cute. But as we move on in the book, we see the arrival of Lex Luthor to an abandoned orphanage.
Yeah, and then the actual plot, and we'll get into this as we go on. Like, I think it's not perfect. I think Steve Rude, obviously, no disrespect to Gibbons, but Steve Rude definitely carries this book, in my opinion. The plot is about, like, some old dude who exploited the Metropolis orphanage and used children for crime, but he served his time, he's reformed, and right before he died, he, like, moves the orphanages to Midway, and it's going to be a fresh start. And so this is their like opening, even though they have a more official opening later.
And and Joker shows up.
Yeah.
with Tweedledum and Tweedledee.
Which was wonderful.
I totally forgot about those characters.
There's all kinds of orphanage conspiracy buying stuff.
Well, somehow they state this, like, Lex is buying this orphanage in Gotham that's in Crime Alley, and apparently Joker owns a bunch of buildings in Crime Alley?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
I wasn't sure how I felt about the Joker characterization. It's kind of interesting because it plays him up as, like, a mobster, like, on a similar level, obviously more publicly criminal than Lex Luthor. But, like, he's implied to own Crime Alley, like, most of the buildings there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Which, I mean, sometimes, like, it was always kind of implied in the TV show that the Joker was, like, a legitimate gangster and maybe actually ran, like, criminal businesses.
Well, it's not like Joker owning property is something we haven't seen before, because, like, he does own the amusement park in Killing Joke, and, like, it's always referenced that he has, like, criminal warehouses around Gotham that's usually based out of, like, an old toy company or a dummy factory and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
But it is very weird to see him, like, own actual building property.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, Joker has a lot of great moments in this book, but I've also never felt, besides, like, maybe one or two scenes, I never felt genuinely scared of the Joker. He's definitely upstaged by Lex.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think, well, getting into it, there's a fun to seeing Batman and Superman work together, and I also think there's also a fun to seeing Joker and Lex work together, because Joker and Lex have that same kind of dynamic, like, kind of opposite feel that Batman and Superman do, but it's always just, like, it always gets crazy and mostly fun for me whenever I see Lex and Joker team up, because those are two guys personality-wise that should never work together.
No, they're the most opposite characters ever.
It's really fun and it still works ultimately, but at the same time, in this book, they don't really actually team up together. If anything,
they just really go adjacent.
But before we move on, we get another interlude where it shows, I thought it's 2 pages, and it shows Superman and Batman's origins alongside each other in both halves of the page, and it's 2 pages.
Yeah.
And I fucking love this sequence so much.
It's so good.
It's wonderful.
I think this might honestly rival Grant Morrison's All-Star page for me.
The All-Star page is really good, and the beauty of that is you only did it with, 7 words?
Yeah, it's like 3 panels.
Yeah, 3 panels and 7 words. But this is just so good, just down to the coloring, inking, and everything on it. It's both of them are having bad dreams after the orphanage party.
Yeah.
Because they both are waking up. But even you can, like, even in to show the difference in, like, Bruce isn't waking up, like, he's clearly awake and just, like, throwing the pillows over him, and you can see, like, the cold sweat he has, while Clark's just, like, turning on the light.
Yeah. Bats are nocturnal.
But I like that you even show their differences, even just, like, in the way, like, they handle a nightmare.
Yeah.
So then, after making this deal, Lex and Joker, they do a switcheroo, and then Batman in Gotham is trying to deal with Luthor's bullshit, and then Superman tries to stop the Joker from a public stunt. And first of all, in the Superman sequence, he, like, catches a bomb in midair and then, like, stomachs it and it explodes in midair.
Yeah.
That was a really badass moment.
Yeah, honestly.
Oh yeah, that was also the scene where we got the 2 people having sex in the park, right?
Oh, I must have missed that.
I must have missed that. What?
What do you mean?
Yeah, are you kidding me? You don't. It's right where the explosion is. Like, there's.
Wait, right where the explosion is?
Like.
Oh shit! Yeah.
And there's the 2 people down there.
Yeah, they're fucking in the park, man.
There is.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, both heroes, like, they save the day, no one gets hurt, but they don't technically win.
Mm-hmm.
Batman kind of gets roughed up a little bit because he gets caught in a fire explosion.
Yeah.
And then also he's kind of, his actions are deemed reckless because Luthor, quote unquote, saved the day at the last minute.
Yeah, he was fighting a giant robot, and he had the stop button for it.
Mm-hmm.
They're both embarrassed at the end of the day, and so we get these rooftop scenes of them talking to Gordon and Perry. And I thought that was a cool parallel as well again.
It's weird to see Superman talking to Perry just because, like, I don't usually see Superman, like, confiding in Perry White that often. Usually you'd see Lex talking to Perry White. I'm sorry, not Lex, Clark talking to Perry White. So I thought that was interesting.
And the end of the first issue, we have everyone back at the Midway Orphanage, and Bruce Wayne gets Clark away from the crowd, and there's this great dialogue where they say, "Should we team up?" And he's like, "Nah, not yet."
No.
And so, just like the Joker and Lex, they're going to swap places. So Bruce Wayne is going to Metropolis, and Superman is going over to Gotham.
I thought that was one of the most interesting parts of this whole story. Was the whole
near the end of this issue is the drawings by the orphans of Batman and Superman, which is pretty cool.
Oh, it's great. But, like, there's also the 12-year-old who, like, really struggles with, like, all sorts of, like, grammar spelling.
Yeah. I mean...
Like, he doesn't know how to spell laugh. He used to life in Metropolis. And then he thinks the S on Superman's chest stands for his name.
Yeah.
I mean, that
one I understand, though.
Yeah.
I don't believe the Hope thing came until Birthright.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Makes sense.
I always wondered, like, how do they do, like, kids' drawings in, like, comics? Like, I've seen this, like, in some stories.
I kind of hope that they get, like, their own children to draw.
That's what I'm thinking.
That's what I'm hoping.
I'm hoping Steve Rude got his, like, kids to draw this, or maybe Dave Gibbons got his kids to draw this. Mm-hmm. But, like, if Steve Rude drew it, then, like, that's still cool that he, like, because it's in a completely different style.
That he could change up his art style that much to draw like a child.
Steve Rude looked at that and he's like, I got an easy day.
This is cool.
But going on to issue 2, Damone, you want to take issue 2?
Yep, I can indeed take issue 2. So, issue 2, we first start off with a cover of Lex and Joker shaking hands.
I love this cover.
Together. It's my favorite cover.
The covers are gorgeous. I forgot to mention the first one, which I think obviously is used for most of the trade covers and everything. The first one is my favorite, and it's just gorgeous.
The covers are the Steve Rude paintings, not his drawings.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But then I think my favorite part is that the very next page, they, like, widen out on what the cover did, and you see, like, the people behind, like, Joker and Lex firing, like...
Yeah, that have their guns up.
That's actually my favorite one. I like that one more than the first one.
Yeah, I like this. That's why the second one's my favorite. And then we end up with the they're finally switching cities, but they don't go, like, in a fancy way. They both go by train.
Yeah.
Midway actually was built to overlook where the Gotham and Metropolis railways meet. So it's like that. It looks over the trailways, so they made the trains important by making them go on the trains, which was nice. The first one we see coming off the train is Clark, and he's met by Alfred, and his cover for being in Gotham is that he's researching the poor of the area, like that?
Yeah. And Bruce Wayne is going to see the homelessness and, like, poverty in Metropolis and see what he can do to help with it for the Wayne Foundation.
Yeah.
And then right after Alfred is starting to drive Clark to his hotel, we zoom in on Bruce getting met by Lois and
Jimmy Olsen.
I don't know how I forgot that name.
And Lois Lane does not like Bruce Wayne in this book. It's not like they're buddy-buddy yet.
He really doesn't. Like, she's very annoyed at everything he does.
Well, because Bruce is trying to hit on her.
Yeah. I mean, it's also being, like, also kind of rude in general as well. Like, he's hitting on her.
Yeah, that's the Bruce Wayne persona. He has to act like that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But they become buds by the end of the book, though.
Yeah.
Right.
And also, I want to add, I like how when they're getting picked up by either Jimmy Olsen and Superman's getting picked up by Alfred. How Alfred acts like, hey, you want me to can I like carry your luggage? He's like, no, I'll be fine. And then you see like Bruce on his end, and he's getting like a dude to like push a huge cart of all of his stuff. And it shows like the contrast between like their backgrounds and their I think it was really cool.
And then some hookers see Superman flying.
Yeah, but they do the classic thing where it's like they mistake it for something else at first. Where it's like, no, it's Batman, but like, or no, it's the bat signal. It's like, no, I know what that is. It's Superman.
No, but before she says that, she's like, it looks like a cloud.
Yeah, it looks like a cloud.
Where was Catwoman? Where was Selena Kyle?
Oh, God.
She would have been Catwoman by this point.
Yeah, probably.
But well, then we cut to Luthor's minions trying to buy old people off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They've lived in the building for 50 years and they refuse to move, but he's not.
Literally.
So he decides to knock down the building by, I don't even know, like, they have like this peg.
Yeah, which is weird.
The ground just holding up an entire wall. Like, I don't know what they were thinking when they put that together.
Yeah, it's poor.
That makes sense.
Poor building structure, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So he knocks it out, and then Superman comes and he fixes the wall so that everything's fine now.
Well, the cool part is where he just holds it up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the wall's not crumbling. Like, it's a pretty firmly built wall that it's not crumbling just from being held up by like one spot.
Yeah.
But like, it's all falling together, and like it's still held up like the weakest way you possibly could have held up a wall.
Yeah. And I found it funny how like this like old woman, like right when the wall's about to fall, everyone's like scattering except this one lady's like, I lived here for 50 years. I'm not moving, even if it crushes me. Like, I thought that was hilarious.
One of my favorite sequences in this issue is when we cut back to Metropolis, where it's Tweedledum and Tweedledee are juggling on unicycles, but like it's the wide it's a shot of like up on top of the building and Batman's just on top of the LexCorp tower looking down at them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then while the Tweedledee and Tweedledum are the distraction, so while they're doing that, Joker sneaks into the pawn shop across the street. And he steals some cards or something, Joker stuff, I guess. Did we ever find out? Did we find out exactly what he was trying to steal?
I have no clue.
Yeah, they're antique playing cards.
Antique playing cards.
I mean, it's vacation.
That's what I thought.
It's vacation. Let him rock.
Well, that's the best part is it is vacation for the Joker because he's literally running around in swim trunks with sharks on them, and like the classic like one-piece swimsuit on as his shirt. And like he's got like kind of like the hat from Killing Joke on, so
yeah,
it's a wonderful outfit for him.
And then the orphans are listening in on the runner of the orphanage, and something's going amok.
Yeah, he's talking on the phone.
What's happening?
Some guy they heard. They can also hear a voice from the attic, and being children, it makes.
Yeah, they think it's a ghost.
It's all believable that the children believed it was a ghost because it just made sense. But then they meet what's his name? He's not Monk. He's like the helper.
Fulbright, Albert Fulbright or something.
Yeah, Fulbright. Yeah.
Reverend Full, and then they give them a sandwich to try to put them back to bed. And after that, we cut to this time it's Clark Kent talking to the same people that Superman saved the night before.
Yep.
And he uses the Daily Planet checking account to pay for like 10 people's lunch, which I don't think journalists can do that.
Well, here's the funny thing is that the Daily Planet would not pay for him to stay in the Gotham Plaza. Because Alfred asks him where he's staying, and he's like, I'm not staying at the rich Gotham hotel. He's staying at the older one, at like the kind of the runner down one, because it's on. He mentions the Planet's salary on that one, like, so he's just recklessly spending the Planet's salary here.
Yeah.
But you got to do it for the story, which we don't really get a resolution. Clark doesn't write a story at the end of this book.
Yeah, which is.
despite his cover being investigating things.
I mean, he was kind of busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One scene in this issue I loved is when the little kid tries to get an autograph from the Joker.
Yeah.
And Bruce sees that and runs across the street and stops him.
It's like, I'll get you one from Batman.
But who's going to authorize that signing?
Of Batman?
Anyone can sign a piece of paper that says with Batman and send it to
I thought he was going to sign it and just, like, write Batman on it and just run away. That would have been the funniest thing.
Well, I mean, he's just going to track the kid down and be like, hey, kid, here's my autograph.
He just writes Batman on a piece of paper and just, like, runs away or just winks or something. I don't know. That would have been pretty funny.
Lois and Bruce have dinner, and Lois is having none of it.
Yeah, she just doesn't care.
And then Lex comes, and then Bruce shows up Lex.
Wait, but can we mention before that how, like, the cop, Batman met the cop, but, like, when the cop saw him there, it's like, I'm just going to pretend I didn't see you, because he didn't want him to get a report more complicated.
Right. Because the Metropolis police do not like Batman, but they're fine with Superman. So it's this weird double standard of, we don't like vigilantes.
Yeah.
Except
Unless
Superman
they
is
have
totally a
superpowers.
vigilante.
Yeah. But then, like, I like that there's one scene, I think we passed it already, but yeah, when Batman was stopping the Joker from robbing that pawn shop, they said that, like, Batman, we do things different around here. It's not Gotham. And it's just, so it shows that, like, that they don't really like him. They don't like the way he does things.
Right. Did you like, and then we enter towards Christmas time as they both are going back to Gotham and Metropolis, which gives us a beautiful Christmas spread.
Yeah, it's nice. Wonderful.
I don't say that.
As Superman is spending it with all of his friends, and Batman's alone.
Yeah.
Also, did you like the Joker dressing up as Santa Claus?
And Santa Claus, I loved it.
I love that.
Oh, and who wouldn't be as festive as Christmas?
The kids also put on the Alice in Wonderland play, which was really fun.
Also, I'm just going to say it, that the Albright guy who runs the orphanage totally has a Hitler mustache.
Oh, yeah, he does. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, so the orphanage catches on fire. Everyone gets out. Superman and Batman save the opposite kids of those that idolize them. Lex and Joker get away. And then we get one of the best scenes in the story.
The orphanage burns.
Which is, all right, well, we're going to talk about this. Yeah. Superman gives Batman a Christmas gift, and it's the Mask of Zorro, or I guess the Mark of Zorro.
Yeah, on VHS.
Yeah, on VHS, because that would have been all the rage back in 1990.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, that's probably not the best gift to give Batman.
Yeah, well, this is a really weird scene because it's, like, really great, but there's so many ways you can interpret it. I think, like, in terms of the plot, I think the suggestion is definitely Clark is telling Bruce he knows his identity.
But they'd already know each other's identity because they talked about teaming up earlier.
But even that, if you look at this outside of context and pretend that it's like nothing is in continuity with it, you could see that as should Clark and Bruce team up?
Well,
because they're both powerful in their secret identities as well as a reporter and a businessman. And so you could read that scene as like, all right, how can Bruce and Clark help each other?
The way I read it is they know who they are. So this is just, I guess.
That's what I read this too.
Yeah.
But
I can understand where.
No, I can understand where he's coming from. I just think there's just weird things in this book where it just feels that they would already know each other. But this scene's supposed to be nice, but like giving Batman probably like a definite trigger of PTSD for Christmas isn't the best thing to go about celebrating the holidays, I feel.
Yeah. And actually, I was a little like confused because like I was wondering like how would like Clark know about how significant the Mask of Zorro is to Bruce if they don't really know each other that well in the story. Well, not know each other that well, but know each other to that extent to know that part of his past.
Yeah, sometimes you'll see this page out of context as like presented as like a dick move from Superman.
Honestly.
But I don't know. It's really complicated because like you could make the argument that like because Superman's not a dick about it, so you could make the argument that it's actually a nice gesture.
It is. I think it's him trying to be nice, but it's just. I think with the way people like us overanalyze things like this, it feels like it's kind of a dick move.
Yeah, and then it's made more complicated that like Bruce's reaction isn't very clear either.
Right.
Yeah.
But he does say crime never takes a holiday.
Yep.
True.
Moving on to the third and final issue. Mikey, you want to head this one up?
Yeah, sure. Well, the cover for it's really awesome. I like the cover for this issue. It's really cool. With Superman holding up Joker and Lex.
And Batman taking out Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And the alternate, and we see that cover and the inside cover is actually the photo used for the Daily Planet, where the world's finest heroes triumph. So that's like the secondary cover for this.
Yeah, that's secondary cover for it.
But we open on the cool spreads of Christmas time with Batman alone in the cave and Superman with everyone. Which, by the way, like Gordon's there, so I guess it's implied this is taking place at Ma and Pa Kent's house because they're also there in the kitchen.
Yeah, but well, is that them? Why would Gordon be at Ma and Pa Kent's house?
I know, like that's the thing about this book. I don't know why.
I think it's the orphanage, and you can just write away the old people as like I don't know.
Yeah, I thought it was it couldn't have been Ma and Pa Kent's house. I thought they were at the orphanage and those are like
because the two main orphans are there too.
Right. It makes more sense that it wouldn't be, but the fact that like that clearly is Ma Kent in the kitchen talking to Lois Lane.
And there's also a dog, and it's not Crypto. So.
Well, they've had a dog that isn't Crypto. So.
Yeah.
They have?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, because post-crisis, they didn't want to do any other Kryptonian-related things, so Crypto didn't exist for a while.
Okay. Yeah, but then we start around, and I think it's around New Year's Eve, and everyone is around. I don't know if I think they're in Gotham, right? Are they either in Gotham or Metropolis?
Begins in Metropolis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's in Metropolis, and they're like waiting for their version of their ball to drop.
And then Batman's fighting fires in Gotham City.
Yes.
But when the ball drops, it basically an EMP goes off.
Yeah, and blacks out the whole city.
Yep.
Yeah, so the like secondary plot now that most of the orphanage stuff is done, it's really a war between Joker and Lex, and Batman and Superman are mostly just stuck in the middle, cleaning up the mess.
Yeah.
But the blackout in Metropolis apparently not a huge deal, all things considered, because Superman flies over to Gotham pretty quickly.
Yeah. Because he thinks that it's gonna be the power is gonna be powered up like in no time. That's why he doesn't really care that much about it.
The backup generators and everything.
Yeah, backup generator and whatnot.
And the way Superman helps put out these fires also fucking badass. Once they put out the fires, they decide to head back to Metropolis together.
Yeah.
And there's a hilarious scene of Clark is like, I'm gonna fly.
Yeah, and he's like,
and then he picks up Bruce.
It's the funniest thing. He just carries him around.
It's always hilarious when you have a team of superheroes and like they don't have any vehicle, but half of them fly. Yeah. So Aquaman's like, help me out.
And technically Aquaman could just be like run out to the ocean and just go on a whale, I guess, but
and Aquaman like jump really high too. Like you can use that for traveling.
Technically Aquaman on land should be as strong and as fast as Wonder Woman.
Okay, yeah.
That's fair.
I've always thought that if you can swim really fast, that has to translate somewhat on land.
Yeah, for sure.
I wouldn't say that because it depends. Because swimming is a different action, but like you definitely have the strength to run. Relatively.
Yeah, but Wonder Woman's not supposed to be super speed anyways, and she should be able to fly as far as I'm concerned in most interpretations.
Back to now we have a superhero team up.
Cool.
Official one, not just swapping cities.
Well, Superman and Batman need a ride, and Jimmy Olsen comes and gives them one.
And is like, wait, what's that car called? What is he called? What's the car called?
His jalopy.
Jalopy, there we go. He's like the perfect car for surveillance.
Because no one will ever expect it.
Yeah.
That's true.
And we cut to Lex kind of going mad.
Yeah, he's having a tantrum.
Yeah, that's a good scene. And then it ends awkwardly where he's like about to have sex with a lawyer or something.
Yeah, at least that's what it's implied. And then Superman's putting the cable back on, where he's putting power back to the city.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like lifting helicopters.
Yep.
And then another ridiculous feat from Superman. He carries a nuclear power plant into space.
Yep.
That happened.
Yeah.
Do you like the part where Batman goes into the sewers and scares Tweedledum and Tweedledee?
Yeah, that was good. And about at this point, I don't know if it was just me overinterpreting the art, but they're drawing more lines on Bruce's face, and so I interpreted that as him developing scruff, like as this plot goes on. But I'm not sure if it could just be like weird inking details.
The way I took it is like there's ash on his face because he was like in the fire.
Okay, yeah, that could be it too.
Okay, yeah, that's believable.
And he was getting thrown around, so I think it's like bruises and like just kind of.
Lots of fires in this book too. So
yeah, so it could have been like ash or like just smut.
But so they saved the power plant, but they didn't get Joker or Lex. But Perry's like, "Hey, just shake hands," and he shows them the front page of the emergency edition of the Daily Planet.
The emergency edition.
That's what it says up in the left corner.
City.
So it's the world's finest team save cities.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically it.
The thing about it is when they go their separate ways, Batman says good day, and Superman says good night, which is a switch to how they addressed each other at the party at the beginning. Because Bruce was saying night, Clark was much more like suited towards the day, so like they switch it up here, which is kind of neat.
Yeah.
And then Lex Luthor extorts Joker and claims that he owes him like $10 million or some shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
I don't know how you're gonna try to extort like a fellow criminal though, like who's on your footing, criminal-wise, but like.
And then he says like, yeah, I'll just pay him in like IOUs or something, like no problem.
IOUs as he runs out trying to escape.
Yeah.
And then the final happy ending is that the orphanage is rebuilt jointly from the Bruce Wayne Foundation and Lex. And that orphanage looks fucking deluxe.
Yeah, it's like 3 layers of stuff.
I didn't actually notice it was an orphanage until like they mentioned that. That was like an amusement park or some shit. Like,
yeah, it looks like if you don't read the sign on front, it looks just like an amusement park. Well, I mean, actually, it does say Midsummer Fair, so I guess it would be some kind of amusement thing.
Okay.
Oh, wait, what? No, it shouldn't be. Why was it Midsummer Fair? Now I'm trying to think of this.
Then Harry writes a column about the 4 central characters, Superman, Batman, Lex, and Joker. And I thought this was pretty cool. And Rude and Kessel, they changed up their art style again for this sequence.
Yeah, it's this looks like it's much more like sketched.
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting. They're like Perry, it's just his column. So he's pontificating various questions. He's like, are Batman and Superman and Joker, are they just like kids who dress up like weirdos? Or is there a mature adult inside them? What do they do in their personal lives? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
And then we get a scene of Superman just coming to mess with Lex as he just comes to stand by his window.
I know so much.
Oh, seeing the gauntlet he has, it reminded me that earlier in the story he used the glove to crack some walnuts.
Yeah.
Which I thought was hilarious.
And he throws a globe at Superman, and of course it does nothing, and Superman just smiles and flies away.
Like, when I was, like, this scene, like, these 2 pages, I just thought like Superman was trying to like look intimidating like Batman, and you see like because you see the whole shadow all over him, and you see the cape flowing, and just the white eyes. That was so cool.
And then Batman tries to kill the Joker, lighting him on fire. It's like the scene from Batman Returns where he uses the car exhaust to light that one dude of the Penguins on fire. He basically tries to do the same thing to the Joker with the Batplane. But instead, it just burns his clothes off.
Yeah.
And that's the little coda, which finishes up the book.
So I guess getting into final thoughts here. How'd you guys like it? I really like this book, but I will say that the plot is kind of convoluted and not as strong as the art.
Yeah, it felt like there were like 2 or 3 plots going on at the same time, which
hard to follow. It's hard to like pinpoint what to focus on while reading it. So
yeah, I liked the orphanage plotline. Gave us like 1 or 2 scenes that were really cute with those 2 kids. Yeah. But overall, the whole orphanage plotline, it's just convoluted and it upstages Joker and Lex until the very end. So I wish the whole book would have been more focused on the war between Joker and Lex.
Yeah, that one was more interesting.
Yeah, but Rude's art is stellar.
Yeah, I just want to like add like my favorite part of this whole like story. What my favorite like scene was actually the party in the first issue, because like you see the little like details that Gibbons and Rude puts into, like, for example, how like Bruce Wayne's wearing an all like dark black suit and then Clark's wearing a bright white suit, which invokes like, you know, the themes between like, you know, the darkness of Gotham and the brightness of Metropolis. And like you see like Lois is talking to Alfred and Perry's talking to Gordon, all that other stuff. So that was cool.
So, and I can't help but wonder if when they did Superman the Animated Series, they eventually did the World's Finest Team-Up 3-parter episode, which was then just spliced together and like they called it the Batman Superman movie. I feel like that they definitely use this as at least a basis for their inspirations on where the story to go, because there's a lot of moments in this that play out almost exactly the same in that cartoon.
Yeah.
I want to go on another little quick tangent, just talk about the title. So this is World's Finest, which is just in general used to refer to the relationship between these 2 characters. But that dates back to Superman 76 in 1952, which is the first time the 2 of them ever appeared in a story together, outside of maybe a rare JSA appearance or 2. And then starting with issue 71 of World's Finest Comics, there are separate stories in that book were merged. And for years, they really just did crazy shit. Like, they'd play baseball with Robin and stuff like that.
Well, it's one of the famous covers of them playing baseball together.
And then the spirit of the World's Finest has lived on in the modern day through this book. And then for years, you had the Superman Batman comic, which was launched by Jeff Loeb and Ed McGuinness, which maybe this podcast will eventually cover. That would be interesting to look at, the first arc or 2 of that. And then in the New 52, they flipped their billing and retitled the book Batman Superman. And there have also been plays on this concept with other family members. So you've had a Robin Superboy World's Finest miniseries. You've had Batgirl and Supergirl hanging out. You've had Huntress and Power Girl. And so it's very much a consistent brand for DC whenever members of the Superman franchise and Batman franchise team up.
Yep. And with that, there's currently no type of World's Finest book being published right now, but there's always one probably. Give it 5 years, they'll always put one out, or at least a mini-series or something. Like, it never rests for long.
Well, not the specific branding of World's Finest, but Super Sons, that's a World's Finest.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That, it was awkwardly canceled despite being like one of their top sellers, and now it's getting renumbered and retitled and soon to come back.
Well, it's getting 12 more issues. It's being called The Adventures of the Super Sons.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great. I didn't know that, because it was a shame that it got canceled when it was very successful and very good. So.
And I guess we'll see what happens with John and Damian, because on Instagram, one of the artists was teasing some art of a future John Kent. So I don't know
Oh,
what
I
Bendis
saw
is going to
that.
do with him.
I saw that. It looked really interesting.
But I'd say we'd all recommend this book then.
Yeah, for sure.
Great.
Wholeheartedly. I'd say for Superman fans and Batman fans, I think it's a must-have, must-read.
If you want like to look at like an old school like golden age like style art and stuff like that, yeah, definitely give it a try. It's very nice to look at.
Well, the best thing about it is it, like, with the art and the way the story's structured, it has that timeless feel where you can really give this to any person, whether they're a kid or older, and I think you're going to equally enjoy it. So that's the best part about this book is that timeless feel about it.
Mm-hmm. That all ages appeal.
Anything else, guys, or are we good to wrap up here? Because I got all I have to do is reveal the pick for the next episode.
I'm good.
I don't have anything to add.
Well, one of the orphans
All there is to say.
One of the orphans mentioned he was from Suicide Slum, and I was like, huh, that's where Black Lightning's from.
Yep.
Reference.
And with that, we're going to get into that fun time where we talk about the next pick. Since Vince was the guest pick, it rotates back to me, so it's my pick again.
All right.
And I have chosen Dark Knight, a true Batman story by Paul Dini and illustrated by Eduardo Risu.
Ooh.
So it's this is actually a book from Vertigo.
Okay.
And it's Paul Dini's basically autobiography of the time of when he was working on Batman the Animated Series and how he struggled with. He got beat up and his face was broken in by some muggers. So it was his. It's the story about that, but much more than that.
Yeah, I've heard about that actually.
And it's beautifully illustrated by one of my favorite Batman artists, Eduardo Risu, who works with Brian Azzarello. So he's done Broken City, and then they did the Flashpoint books. And I think he did. Did he do Batman Deathblow as well?
I believe so.
So there's that. Vince, thanks for coming on. Would you want to come back sometime?
Yeah, thank you guys.
Please do.
Great. It was great being on the podcast. While I'm spieling, go check out the Clone Saga, the show that I run, where we talk about the 1990s Spider-Man Clone Saga and everything related to it whatsoever.
And you can catch me on there as well, as we suffer weekly.
But yeah, I'd love to come back. I have a few other books I'd be interested in covering, and so followers of this show, be on the lookout. Maybe you'll see me again.
I guess so. We've had you and Matt on now. I guess all we got to do is get Billy, and then I have the whole Clone Zone cast on.
Yep.
So we gotta. I guess Billy's got to be the next one. We got to try to come on the Cowl Cast.
We'll get on.
Is there a Shazam?
Yeah. No.
Not really. I don't think there's ever really been. I can't even think of a major guest appearance.
Batman's in Day of Judgment.
I mean,
Yeah.
So I guess
Billy
that.
comes on, I'm just gonna.
That's not really a Batman story, though.
If Billy just comes on, I'm just gonna mess with him and be like, "Oh, where's Shazam right now, Billy?" He's like, "Shut up, Mikey."
What do you mean? He's got that book coming from Jeff Johns.
Oh, is he? Yeah, he is. Never mind. Okay, yeah, then never mind.
But Damone, you
Get
wanna
one here fast.
leave us with those familiar words?
So yeah, I would like to thank everyone for tuning in again and get home safe.
Yep.
All right, get home safe.
See you, everyone.